Hello and welcome to yet another webinar by Sensible. So let's get started. So these three are the inventors of the Black-Scholes model. We will not learn about Ito's lemma or Black-Scholes or how to plug inputs to Black-Scholes or any mathematical smoke things. We will learn useful stuff like how option prices change, how to intuitively get a grasp of Greeks, how Greeks themselves change, how Greeks interact with each other, what does all of this mean, and how to use this to trade. So we all know what affects spot option prices. They are strike price, spot, time, IV and interest rates. But what really affects option prices is just spot, time and IV. So throw the other ones out because it's not really going to be applied on a day-to-day basis. So let's just focus on three things: spot, time, IV, and go ahead. So when stock price increases, call price goes up, put price goes down. When strike price increases, the call price goes down. Similarly for put, if it's a high strike put, it's high value. If it's low strike put, it's low value. Time to expiry, regardless of whether it's a put or a call, time to expiry increases option value. And finally, IV increases the price of both puts and calls. Right. So now let's jump into Greeks. Greeks are shorthand tools to calculate option prices quickly. We'll see how it is done very soon. It's also a measure of how option price changes with respect to spot or time or IV. Right. So this is the basic definition of Greeks. It's a shorthand to calculate option prices quickly and to measure how option prices change. There are 5 Greeks, of which rho is completely unimportant and gamma is important only if you are trading like a huge position. So let's focus on the big 3: delta, vega, theta. Delta is the change in option price with the underlying price, which is also called spot. Theta is the change in option price with time, and vega is change in option price with changes in IV, right? Let's not focus too much on gamma and rho for now. We'll come to that later. You need Greeks. You definitely need Greeks if you're going to trade options. So let's look at delta, right? Delta is a change in option price with change in stock price or spot. Delta can be positive or negative. Delta positive means that when underlying goes up, right, your option price also goes up, right? And when delta is negative, the option price is inversely related to the stock price. So delta positive is almost like you have bought a future or stocks. Your P&L acts exactly like how your P&L would act if you had a stock. Delta negative is like you have sold a stock. It's like shorting a stock. Calls have positive delta and puts have negative delta, which means buying a call has positive delta and it's almost like buying a stock, right? And selling a put, which is negative into negative, will have a positive delta. So if you've sold a put, you're betting that the stock will go up. So sell put has positive delta because the negative of negative is positive. Sell call is the negative of positive, which is like negative. And selling a call is like taking a bet that the stock will go down. So the delta is negative. Buying a put has negative delta because by buying a put, you're betting that the stock will go down. So it's almost like shorting stock. Here's an example. If Nifty is at 11,000 and you have a price of a call option at 50 rupees, which is an ATM call, and it has a delta of 0.5, what will be the price of the option when Nifty goes up by 20 points? It's very simple. Change in the price of the option is delta multiplied by change in underlying. So that's 0.5 into 20 points on Nifty, which is 10. Now this is how much the option price has changed. Add that to 50 and you have the new option price. Let's take one more example. SBI is at 300, price of the 295 put option is at 5 rupees. This one has a delta of minus 0.4. What is the price of the option when SBI goes up by 5 rupees points? That is fairly simple. Delta into change of underlying is a change in option price. So that's minus 0.4, right? Because it's a put option into change in underlying, right? Which is 5 rupees. So that's minus 2. Option price would drop by 2 rupees. So 5 minus 2 is 3 rupees. Right. So let's just take this example in Builder. So I have a Nifty 10,250 call, right? And the delta on that is 36 rupees. Right. So this is a simplified delta. We have multiplied the delta by lot size. So the delta is 36 rupees. So what would happen if Nifty goes up by 10 points? It's very simple. Multiply 10 with 36, it will be 360 rupees. So if Nifty goes up 20 points, my profit should reach 720 or 710 or something, right? So let's do that. So Nifty is at 10 250, profit is 169. So delta is 36. If it goes up 20 points, it has moved up roughly 720 rupees. So that seems right. So delta graph, right? This is a graph of delta with stock price. So one of the most important things in understanding delta is knowing that delta is kind of like the probability of expiry of an option in the money. So basically, if you have a Nifty 10400 call or something, the delta of 10400 call is in a way the probability that Nifty spot would cross 10,400 and expire there on the expiry day. Once you understand this thing very clearly, half your problem in understanding options trading is over. Like once you know this, that's it. There's nothing else you need to know in understanding of delta. Everything else can be derived from this knowledge. So think about this, right? What is the delta of Nifty 11,500 right now? What's the chances that it will expire in the money? Almost zero. Like so, and the delta of Nifty 11,500 is actually zero. Think about a Nifty 9,300 call, right? What is its probability of expiry in the money? No matter what you do, that thing is almost going to expire in the money unless something drastic happens in the next 3 days, right? So the probability of that expiring in the money is almost 100%, which is 1 in probability terms. So the delta is also 1. Let's just verify what I'm saying is right or wrong, right? I mean, what if I'm just saying whatever I want? Okay, so you can see the Greeks here. The delta of a 9,400 call is almost 1, which means it is definitely going to expire in the money. And the delta of 11,200 call is 1%. So delta gradually increases to 0.5, which is around ATM. And it reaches a maximum of 1 for deep ITM. So here's an interesting question. Why is the delta of ATM 0.5? It's very simple, right? If you have an option and the underlying is at the options level right now, option strike level right now, it has a 50-50 chance of expiring in the money or out of the money. I mean, assuming that nobody has the prophetic ability to predict where the Nifty goes in the next 1 month. If you have Nifty 10,300 and Nifty is right now at 10,300, it is a coin toss. Therefore, the delta of an ATM is 0.5, which is a 50-50 chance. And this is for the put option. So put option, same rules apply, except that it goes down from 0 to -1. So in absolute value, it is the same graph. With the sign, it becomes 0 to -1. So a deep ITM put has a delta of -1. A deep OTM put has a delta of 0. And an ATM put has a delta of -0.5. One interesting application of delta I can think of is this. If you have an ATM option, it is almost like having half a future long or short, right? So if you want to trade half a future for whatever reason, like say you don't have the risk appetite to trade one full future, or you don't want to get into that, or on an intraday basis, you're thinking that, look, I don't want to trade, let's say 3,000 stocks of SBI. I want to do only 1,500 stocks of SBI. Then taking a call option or a put option, depending on your direction, is a great way to get exposure to half a future of SBI. So now let us just look at this delta change graph in Builder. I have this Nifty 10,250. So at this level, right? So delta is roughly 75 multiplied by half. It is 37 half. So 36.7 is good enough per lot. Right, so it means with every rupee Nifty goes up or down by, your options P&L will change by 36 rupees. So when Nifty goes up, delta should increase, and you can see that it is going up. It is reaching 75, which is basically lot size into 1 at its max, and the least it is going down and it is becoming 0.1, right? This corroborates or proves our theory that delta is nothing but the probability of expiry in the money. Let's also do one more interesting thing. On the expiry day, delta is binary. So if it is below, it is not going to expire in the money, which is 0%. And if it is above, it is going to expire in the money, which is 100% or 1. So you can see delta has two values, 0 or 75. And at 10,250, you can see delta has become exactly half, which is 75 multiplied by half, which is 37 half. This is an example which we just discussed. So Nifty 1 month 12,000 call when Nifty is 11,000 is almost zero because there's no chance it's expiring in the money. Nifty 1 month 10,000 call when Nifty is 11,000 is 1 because it's definitely expiring in the money. And Nifty 1 month 11,000 call when Nifty is exactly 11,000 is 0.5 because it's really 50-50, right? Halfway. This is a very special case. So let's say Nifty is at 11,000 and Nifty 10 and 10,900 put is something you have with 10 minutes to expiry, right? Delta is 0 because there's no chance it is going to expire below 10,900 in the next 10 minutes or the last 10 minutes of expiry. When Nifty is at 10,800 and you have a Nifty 10,800 call with 1 day to expiry, delta is 0.5 because it could go either way. Nifty is at 10,800, you have a Nifty 11,000 call with 1 month to expiry. Delta is less than 0.5 because there is some chance, but it's not a totally lost cause. Similarly, Nifty is at 10,800, you have a Nifty 10,600 call with 1 month to expiry. It's most likely going to expire in the money because it's above 10,800. Sorry, it's most likely going to expire in the money because Nifty is above the strike price and there's a chance that it will stay that way. So it's greater than 0.5 but not 1 or less than 0.5. So somewhat hopeful, therefore greater than 0.5. And Nifty is at 10,800. There is a Nifty 11,000 call you have. It has 2 years to expiry. So then you have to go back to the first principle and ask, what's the probability of this option expiring in the money? With 2 years to go, everything is 50-50. Therefore, delta will be roughly 0.5, slightly less than 0.5, roughly 0.5. So a delta 0, which is deep OTM, is as good as not having the stock, which is by now it is pretty obvious. A delta 1 is as good as having a stock or long futures. So if you buy a deep ITM call or sell a deep ITM put, its delta is 1. It's as good as you have longed the future or you have the stock. A delta -1 is as good as selling a stock or shorting the future, which is selling a deep ITM call or buying a deep ITM put. And delta 0.5 is like having half a stock or future because option price will change half of the change of the future or the spot price. So like I said before, if you ever feel like betting half a future, better half delta option. So delta versus time. So again, this also becomes very trivial the moment you realize that delta is the probability of expiry in the money, right? So delta of an in the money option, what happens to it with time is the first question, right? So delta is the probability of in the money. You have got a 10,000 Nifty call with 3 days to go, let's say, right? And Nifty right now is at, let's say, 10,300. If it's an ITM option, if you give it more time, the probability of expiry in the money will go down, right? Because in 3 months, it can probably go out of the money, Nifty can move, etc., etc. So if you take an ITM option and you increase the time to expiry, the delta will decrease. If you take an OTM option and give it more time to expire, it means that there's always a chance that it can come and catch up and cross that strike. So OTM options with a long time to expiry have a good delta compared to OTM options which have hardly any time left to expiry. So if I were to look at an October option which is OTM, the delta of it will be lower than a November option which is OTM, right? And finally, ATM option, it doesn't matter. ATM's delta is always 0.5. Whether it's a 1 year option, 2 year option, 1 month option or 1 day option, ATM's delta is always 0.5. Right. So let's take November for a change and let's do this. Here is the delta. So first let's make it OTM. Right. And you can see that the delta here is 33.5, which is less than 0.5 but around 0.5, 0.5 being 37.5. As the time to expiry decreases, you can see that delta is decreasing, which means the probability of expiry in the money will decrease, right? The reason is simple. Nifty is at 10,990 and what are the chances that it will cross 10,250 is what we are looking at. So with every passing day, the chance is going to come down. Therefore, delta is also going to come down. Now let's make this option ITM and cross the 10,250 mark. In this case, you can see that when it is ITM, delta is 1, which is 75 multiplied by lot size. But as time to expiry decreases, or when there is a lot of time left, you can see that delta steadily decreases because there's always a chance that this option can go out of money. The next thing which we have to think through is delta versus IV. Delta is the probability of expiry in the money. For the nth time, we are repeating the same statement. So what does it mean when there is a very high IV? So an option which is already in the money in presence of a very high volatility can go out of money, which means the probability of that one expiring in the money can reduce, therefore delta will decrease. An option which is ATM doesn't care. It's always going to be 0.5. And OTM option, if it has high volatility, there's always a chance that it will get lucky. Therefore, the probability of getting lucky or the expiry probability in the money will increase. Therefore, delta will increase, right? So we can do this visualization again, delta with IV. So let's take an OTM option. So here's an OTM option. Nifty is at 10,080. You have got Nifty 10,250 call. Delta is 28.5. Let's increase IV. And you can see that delta is going up because there's always a chance that this might just go in the money. Now let's take an ITM option and see what happens with IV. So let me just reset the IV. And you can see delta is high, 57.4, right? So if I increase the IV, it means that the option can always go out of money because of the volatility. So let's see what happens. Yep, as we discussed before, you can see that delta is decreasing. So practical applications, if you want to bet in one direction big time using an underlying view, you have to pick up a high delta option. If you do not want to bet big in one direction, pick up a small delta option. If you have a lot of options in your portfolio, your delta will help you understand how much is the sensitivity of your portfolio to spot, right? So this is the application of delta. That brings us to the close of the webinar about delta. In the next segment or in the next webinar, we'll talk about theta, vega and gamma. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care.